You know, child, life has a strange way of testing our hearts. Sometimes it doesn't roar like a storm. It just quietly takes away everything you love. I still remember that morning as if it happened yesterday. The sun had barely risen, the birds were half asleep, and my son, Rohan, stood at the doorway of my small house with his suitcase packed. He wasn't the little boy who used to cling to my sari anymore. No, he was a man now, married, busy, prone, and far too serious for his own mother. "Ma," he said softly, "this is for your own good." Those words, "for your own good," they echo inside me even now. He told me he found a nice home for me, an old age home. Said I'd have company there, people my age, nurses to look after me. He said he was doing it because he loved me. But child, tell me, how does love throw you away so gently that you almost believe it's kindness? I didn't argue. I didn't scream. Maybe because mothers never believe their children could be so cruel. I just nodded. My hands trembled as I folded his shirt for the last time, pretending I still mattered. When he drove me there, the road felt endless. The trees on both sides blurred through my tears. And when we reached, he hugged me once. Not tight, not long, just a quick, polite hug. Then he said, "Take care, Ma. I'll visit soon." He never did. The door closed behind him. And that was the first time I truly felt what silence meant. It wasn't peaceful. It was loud, deafening. The kind of silence that eats at your bones. The old age home wasn't bad, really. The staff was kind, the rooms were clean, and the air smelled of medicine and memories. But nothing replaces your own walls, your own bed, your own people. Every night, I'd lie awake listening to the ticking of the clock and wonder, what did I do wrong? Maybe I loved too much. Maybe I protected him too much. Maybe I forgot that one day he'd stop needing me. The other women there, oh, they were stories themselves. Shanti Auntie, whose daughter lived in Canada, would sit by the window and sing old songs every evening. Nirmala, once a school principal, kept talking about her students as if they still visited her. We all pretended we were fine. We laughed together, drank tea, played cards. But when night came, each of us faced our ghosts. One evening, during dinner, I saw a young boy, must have been 20 or so, serving food to us. He was a volunteer, smiling as he helped an old man eat. And something inside me broke and healed at the same time. I thought, how strange. Someone else's son can show more kindness than my own. That night, I looked out the window at the faint city lights far away. I whispered to myself, maybe this is where my story ends. But then, another voice inside me whispered back, or maybe this is where it be. You see, I'd spent my whole life being someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's caretaker. But who was I when all those titles were taken away? The next morning, I decided to find out. I went to the matron and asked if there was anything useful I could do, any way to help around the place. She looked surprised, then smiled. She said, "You could teach the others to read, maybe? Some of them never got the chance." So that's what I did, every afternoon. Under the old neem tree in the courtyard, I started a small reading group. I'd bring newspapers and old storybooks, and we'd sit together, me and those forgotten souls, reading, laughing, dreaming. Slowly, I began to feel alive again. The air didn't smell like sadness anymore. The days felt warmer. One of the ladies, Kamla, used to say, "You know, Meera, your voice makes us forget we're old." And I'd laugh and reply, maybe because inside I still feel young. But at night, when everyone slept, I'd open my cupboard and stare at the single photograph I had. My son holding his newborn baby. My grandson. The baby I'd never got to hold again. I used to whisper to that picture, "If you ever miss your Dottie, my boy, remember, I'm still here." Time passed like a slow-moving train. Days turned into months. Seasons changed. Faces came and went. And then, one evening, when the power went out and we all sat in the dim candlelight, someone asked, "Meera, what would you do if you could start life all over again?" I smiled and said, "I build something of my own, something no one could take away." Everyone laughed softly, but I wasn't joking. That night, an idea began to form in my mind, a small spark, faint but steady. And that, child, was the night I stopped being abandoned and started being alive. You can take a mother out of her home, but you can't take her dreams out of her heart. They say life gives you second chances in ways you never expect. Mine came wrapped in old newspapers, worn-out books, and wrinkled smiles. After that night, the night I said I wanted to build something of my own, something changed inside me. It wasn't sudden, no. It was quiet, like the slow rising of dawn after a long, dark night. Every morning, I woke up before the others, made myself a cup of tea, and sat by the window watching the sun climb over the old age home's brick walls. I'd whisper to it, "You and I, we're both still showing up. That's something." Teaching those women to read had awakened something in me, something I thought I'd lost when Rohan left me there. Purpose, a reason to wake up. And soon, that little reading circle became the heart of our home. We weren't just reading words, we were reading hope. One day while I was teaching, I noticed one of the staff members struggling with her uniform's torn pocket. She sighed, saying she didn't have time or money to get it stitched. I smiled, took the plot from her, and said, "Give me 15 minutes. You see, before I was a mother, before I was anyone's anything, I used to sew. I stitched little dresses, made tablecloths, embroidered handkerchiefs. My husband used to say, 'Meera, your hands could turn a plain cloth into a festival.' So, I sat by the window with a needle and thread, and by the time she returned, the pocket looked brand new, better than before. Her eyes lit up, and she said, 'Auntie, you should charge for this. You could fix all our uniforms.' I laughed it off then. But that night, as I lay awake, her words kept echoing. 'You should charge for this.' The next morning, I borrowed a small sewing machine from one of the staff. An old, squeaky one, but it worked. I set it up near the window in our common room. At first, I just fixed torn clothes for the residents and staff. A button here, a hem there. They'd slip me 5 or 10 rupees, sometimes just a smile and a thank you. But word spread quickly. Soon, people from the neighborhood started visiting. Someone wanted a pillow cover stitched. Another wanted a saree blouse altered. I'd sit there all day working with my hands, feeling the rhythm of the machine like a heartbeat. It wasn't about the money at first. It was about feeling needed again. But then, little by little, the coins turned into notes. And for the first time in years, I bought something for myself, a new pair of spectacles. Oh, how proud I was. It wasn't about what I bought, but how I bought it, with my own effort, my own dignity. Soon, the matron noticed. She called me to her office and said, "Meera, you're doing wonderful work, but maybe we should formalize it. What do you think about starting a small tailoring unit here?" I was stunned. "Here? In the old age home?" She smiled. "Why not? The other ladies could help. We can sell the stitched items outside. I'll handle permissions. You just lead the team." And that's how it began. our small dream stitched together with old fabric and new courage. We named it Second Thread. Because just like the second thread in a needle, life was giving us another chance to hold things together. Oh, those early days were full of laughter and chaos. The hum of the sewing machines mixed with the sound of gossip and songs. We'd spill tea on fabrics, argue about measurements, and end up laughing till tears rolled down our cheeks. Sometimes I'd pause mid-stitch and look around at those wrinkled faces glowing with pride, and I'd whisper to myself, "We're not abandoned. We're reborn." One afternoon, a young woman from a nearby boutique visited. She'd heard about our work and wanted to see if we could supply handmade cushion covers. I showed her a few samples, bright colors, simple embroidery, neat finishes. She loved them. "I'll take 20 pieces," she said. "If it sells, I'll order more." 20 pieces. That night, we didn't sleep. We worked under a dim light singing old film songs, our needles dancing faster than ever. When we finally delivered the order, the boutique owner paid us, and for the first time, we had profit. With that money, I bought sweets for everyone. Chocolate chip cookie, my favorite. We celebrated like children, sticky fingers and all. The next few months were a blur of orders, laughter, and newfound respect. Local people began calling us the sewing grandmas. Some even came just to talk, to sit with us, to feel that warmth we had created out of nothing. And me? I started feeling something I hadn't in a long, long time. Pride. Not the kind that shouts, the quiet kind. The kind that comes when you look in the mirror and say, "I made it through." Sometimes at night, I'd still look at that photo of my son and grandson. I didn't cry anymore. I just whispered, "Maybe one day you'll hear about your mother. Not the one you left behind, but the one who rose again." And you know what, child? That day wasn't as far as I thought, because life has a way of circling back, and sometimes it brings the people you love right to your doorstep. When you least expect it. You know, child, when you spend your whole life giving, you forget how much strength you still carry inside you, until one day, life asks you to use it again. That's how Second Thread was born. Our little sewing project inside the Maplewood Senior Center had turned into something much bigger than any of us imagined. What started as a few mended shirts and aprons soon became a small wave of purpose that ran through those quiet halls. Every morning, I'd open the blinds in our little sewing room, letting the morning light pour in. The sun would fall across our tables like gold, soft, warm, full of promise. The air smelled faintly of coffee, cotton, and hope. I'd sit with the other ladies, Martha with her loud laugh, Irene who always brought cookies, and Hazel who'd hum gospel songs while stitching. We didn't have much, but we had each other. And that, sweetheart, was everything. People from town started hearing about us, about the sewing grandmas at Maplewood. At first, we stitched for staff, then for the local church bazaar. Then one day, a young woman named Amy, she owned a boutique on Main Street, stopped by. She'd heard about us from her aunt and wanted to see what we could do. She picked up one of the throw pillow covers we'd made, a simple one with floral embroidery and lace edging. She ran her hand over it and said, "Ma'am, this is beautiful. You ladies have magic in your hands." I smiled. "It's not magic, dear. Just a lot of love stitched into old fabric." She laughed and placed her first order, 20 custom pillow covers for her shop. You should have seen the excitement that ran through our little group that day. We worked like busy bees, measuring, stitching, laughing. The air was alive again. When we finally packed those 20 covers, tied them with ribbons, and handed them to Amy, we felt like we just conquered the world. When she came back a week later, she said they'd sold out in 2 days. "I'm gonna need more, Meera," she said, grinning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, maybe this was more than just something to pass the time. Maybe this was the beginning of a new chapter. A week later, the Maplewood director called me into her office. "Meera," she said, "I think what you started here is special. How would you feel about turning this into a proper community project?" I blinked. "You mean a business?" She nodded. "Why not? We can help with the paperwork, get donations, even talk to the local paper. You could sell your items around town, maybe even online." The word business scared me at first. I was a retired homemaker, not an entrepreneur. But something deep inside me whispered, "You've already built lives, Meera. You can build this too." And so with a borrowed laptop, a donated sewing machine, and a small group of determined grandmas, we registered Second Thread Crafts. We made a little logo, a spool of thread shaped like a heart, and hung it above the sewing room door. It wasn't much, but when I saw it, I felt a rush of pride I hadn't felt in years. Then came the day that changed everything. The local newspaper ran a story about us. The headline read, "Second Thread, How a Group of Grandmas Stitched a New Life in Springfield." There was a photo of us all smiling in our aprons, hands on our sewing machines. My phone, a little flip phone, mind you, started ringing non-stop after that. Churches, schools, boutiques, everyone wanted to place orders. One woman called crying, saying she'd been lonely since her kids moved away, and asked if she could come volunteer. I said, "Of course, honey. There's always room for another heart here." The next few months flew by in a blur. We stitched tote bags, baby quilts, table runners, you name it. Our laughter filled the halls of Maplewood, echoing louder than the hum of our machines. The director told me one day, "Meera, you're changing the way people see aging." And I smiled, because I finally understood, getting older doesn't mean you stop living. It just means you live differently. Before long, a representative from a local textile company visited. He said they wanted to collaborate, provide fabric, train us with better machines, and help us sell to bigger markets. It felt unreal. He said, "What you ladies have isn't just a business, it's heart." That's what people remember. With his help, we moved into a small rented space downtown, a bright, open studio with shelves full of colorful fabric. We painted the walls pale yellow and strung fairy lights across the window. Outside, we put up a wooden sign that read, "Second Thread, Handmade with Love by Meera and the Grandmas." People walking by would peek through the window and wave. Kids would press their faces to the glass, watching us sew. One day, the mayor herself stopped by. She shook my hand and said, "You've brought pride to this town, Meera. You've turned loneliness into legacy." When I went home that night, to my small apartment, my own place again after so many years, I sat on the balcony with a cup of coffee, looking at the city lights and whispering, "You see, Robin, your mother made it." I didn't say it with anger anymore, just quiet peace. Still, every time I looked at the photo of my son and my grandson, a little ache stirred inside. My grandson must have been in college by now, maybe even working. I wondered if he remembered his Dottie. But life, child, has a funny way of bringing things full circle. Because a few weeks later, I was sitting in my office, going through internship applications for Second Thread's new youth program, when I saw a name that made my hands tremble. Noah Johnson, my grandson. I froze, staring at that name, tears blurring the letters. And in that moment, I knew the story wasn't done yet. That day, child, I'll never forget that day. I was sitting at my small desk in the downtown studio of Second Thread, going through internship applications for our new youth program. Our goal was simple: give young people a chance to learn sewing, business skills, and community work. I loved mentoring, teaching young hearts how to make a difference. Most of the applications were straightforward, generic resumes, neat handwriting, polite notes. But then I came across one that made my hands freeze. Noah Johnson. I blinked and read it again. Noah Johnson, my grandson. I didn't know what to do. My heart was pounding. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the paper. Could it really be him? Noah, the little boy I held in my arms once, now a young man applying for an internship at my office, in the same city I had built after years of struggle. I tried to calm myself. I folded the resume carefully and told myself, maybe it's just a coincidence. Sharma is a common name. But deep down, I knew. My heart never lies. When Noah arrived for the interview the next morning, I tried to act normal. I sat behind my desk, smiling politely. He walked in, carrying a black backpack and a confident, slightly nervous air, just the way I remember him, only taller, older, more grown up. "Hi, I'm Noah Johnson," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Thank you for this opportunity." I nodded, my voice catching slightly. "Welcome, Noah. Please, have a seat." He sat down, and as I looked at him, I noticed little details. The shape of his eyes, the curve of his smile, the way he shifted his weight when nervous. I couldn't speak at first. My heart was a jumble of memories, regrets, and hope. We started the interview. He answered my questions about teamwork, about creativity, about why he wanted this internship. He was articulate, polite, driven. Everything a grandmother would hope for in her grandson. All the while, I couldn't stop thinking, you're here. You're really here. After the formal part, I decided to take a risk. I asked him casually, "So, tell me a little about your family. Where are you from?" He smiled. "Oh, I'm from Springfield. My mom and dad live there. I grew up mostly with my dad. My mom's really busy, you know." My throat tightened. "Yes, I see." He hesitated for a moment. "Do you have family here in the city?" I wanted to tell him the truth, but the words stuck in my throat. I simply said, "Not many, just me." The rest of the interview went on normally, but in my heart, the world had stopped. Every little memory of him, holding his tiny hand, watching him take his first steps, tucking him in at night, came rushing back. When it was over, I smiled at him. "Thank you, Noah. You'll hear from us soon." He nodded, stood up, and left the office. And as soon as the door closed, I slumped into my chair, tears running down my face. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went to my apartment balcony and looked at the city lights, whispering to the stars, how did it come to this? Why now? The next morning, Noah came back. This time, I had to face him. "Good morning, Noah," I said softly. "Can we talk a little?" He nodded, looking curious and a little nervous. I took a deep breath. "I think I know who you are." His eyes widened slightly. "Excuse me?" "You're my grandson, Noah," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Your mother, your father, they didn't tell me you'd moved here. But here you are, right in front of me." The moment was silent, stretched thin like a fragile thread. And then, he dropped his backpack and ran toward me. "Grandma?" he whispered. I opened my arms and he fell into them. Big, tall, grown-up Noah, and yet still my little boy. We held each other for a long time, tears streaming down both our faces. I whispered over and over, "I missed you. I never stopped thinking about you. I never stopped loving you." He pulled back slightly, wiping his eyes. "I missed you too, Daddy. I never knew. I never knew you were here. I'm so sorry I didn't visit sooner." I shook my head. Don't be sorry, child. Life, it has a way of guiding us, and it brought you here now. That's all that matters. We sat together that morning, talking about everything. His school, his dreams, my business, our family. And slowly, I felt the weight of years of pain lifting from my heart. I realized then, child, forgiveness is not just for them. It's for me too. To let go of anger, to embrace love again, to finally feel whole. By the end of the day, Noah was helping me organize orders at the studio. He laughed, learned quickly, and brought a fresh energy into our space. And I couldn't help but smile through my tears. Life had a funny way of coming full circle. The little boy who once clung to my sari in a small home was now working beside me in a studio I had built from scratch. And I understood, then, that even the deepest heartbreaks can become the foundation for something beautiful. That day, Meera didn't just welcome her grandson back into her life. She welcomed hope, forgiveness, and love, all stitched together in a tapestry stronger than anything she had ever imagined. The days after Noah came into the studio, oh child, they were unlike anything I had imagined. At first, I worried. Would he feel awkward? Would he resent me for not being there while he grew up? But he didn't. Not even once. Instead, he was eager, curious, and kind. He learned quickly, measuring fabrics, threading needles, using the industrial sewing machines. He even started helping with online orders, which, bless him, I had always been too intimidated to fully manage. Watching him click through emails and type polite replies made me laugh. It reminded me of how much the world had changed since I was young. One afternoon, we were working on a big order of hand-embroidered tote bags for a local charity fundraiser. I noticed him pausing, studying a piece of fabric intently. "Dottie," he said softly, "do you mind if I try something a little different? A pattern I saw online?" I looked at him, heart swelling. "Of course, Noah. Make it your own." He worked carefully, and when he showed me the finished bag, I gasped. The embroidery was delicate, imaginative, and colorful. It was him, and yet it fit perfectly with everything we had built. I realized then, child, life had given me a second chance, not just to run this business, but to share it with the grandson I thought I had lost. We laughed. We argued playfully over small mistakes. We celebrated little successes. And through it all, the distance that years of absence had carved slowly disappeared. One evening, after a long day of sewing, we sat on the little balcony of the studio, sipping warm cocoa. The city lights sparkled below, and the hum of traffic was soft, comforting, like a lullaby. "I can't believe this is real," Noah said, shaking his head. "I never imagined I'd be here, in your studio, with you, learning from you." I smiled and reached out, holding his hand. Life has a funny way of bringing people together, Noah. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes it takes mistakes, but it always finds a way. He squeezed my hand, and for a moment, we just sat there. 2 generations finally connected again. As the weeks passed, we began working on bigger projects together. We set up a small online store, and orders started coming in from other cities. People loved our story. A grandmother and her grandson, handcrafting each item with love. It wasn't just a business anymore. It was a family. One rainy afternoon, we were finishing up a batch of hand-stitched aprons when Noah looked up at me, a little hesitant. "Dottie, I've been thinking," he said slowly. "I want to keep working here, even after the internship ends, if you'll have me." Tears welled in my eyes. "Oh, Noah, there's nothing I want more. You're my family. This studio, it's ours now." We hugged, and I felt a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in decades, the kind that comes from healing, from forgiveness, and from love returned. That night, I went home and looked at the old photograph of Rohan, my son, holding baby Noah in his arms. I smiled through my tears. Rohan, I whispered softly, you left me, yes, but look, the family is still here, and I forgive you, truly. Life is too short for anything else. From that day on, our mornings in the studio were filled with laughter, soft music, and the rhythm of sewing machines. Noah and I shared stories, memories, and dreams. I taught him the patterns I had learned as a girl, the little tricks I'd picked up over decades. He taught me about online marketing, social media, and trends I never even knew existed. Together, we were unstoppable, and little by little, the story of Second Thread grew. Local shops started ordering larger quantities. The boutique on Main Street sent in requests every week. Even a magazine reached out, wanting to feature our studio. But none of that mattered as much as the quiet moments. Like Noah helping me untangle a knot in a thread, or our shared laughter over spilled beads, or the way he always poured me a second cup of cocoa because he remembered I liked it sweeter. Through him, the ache of years without my son's family began to fade. Through him, the joy of life, the laughter, the love, the pride, returned to me fully. I realized something, child. Sometimes the universe tests you, not to break you, but to prepare you. It gave me heartbreak, yes, but it also gave me strength. It gave me solitude, yes, but it also gave me purpose. And it gave me a grandson I thought I had lost forever. The studio became our sanctuary, a place where past pain and future hope stitched together seamlessly, just like the threads we worked with every day. And as I tucked Noah in one evening, just as I had once tucked him as a little boy, I whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. Thank you, God, for second chances. Thank you for family. Thank you for love that comes back around, even after years apart. Because that, my dear, is what life had taught me. Even when it feels like the world has left you behind, there's always a chance to stitch it all back together, stronger, brighter, and full of love. It was a quiet morning in the city, the kind where sunlight spills softly across the pavement and everything seems paused, waiting for something important. I was in my studio, sipping coffee, listening to the hum of sewing machines. Noah Johnson was at the desk across from me, carefully stitching a batch of tote bags for an upcoming market. I smiled, watching him work. The studio was alive, full of laughter and soft conversation, a space I had built with my own hands, my own heart, my own life. And yet, something still tugged at me. My son Robin, my only son. It had been years since he left me at Maplewood Senior Center. I had forgiven him in my heart, but I hadn't yet seen him face to face. And now, seeing Noah here every day, I felt a quiet longing to close that circle completely. One evening, after the studio had closed, I took a deep breath and called him. "Hello, Ma," he said, his voice hesitant. "Robin," I said softly. There was a pause on the other end. Then finally, "I will, Ma. I'll come." The day he arrived, my heart beat fast, a mixture of nerves, hope, and memories of the pain he had caused. I met him at the studio door. He was taller, grayer, but unmistakably my son. His eyes were filled with regret and something tender I hadn't expected. "Ma," he said quietly. "Robin," I replied, and I opened my arms. He stepped forward and hugged me, holding me tightly. "I'm so sorry, Ma. I should never have left you. I thought I was helping, but I see now how wrong I was." I held him, tears streaming down my cheeks. Oh, Robin, I was hurt, yes, but life has a way of teaching us lessons, and you've grown. I forgive you. He stepped back slightly, searching my face. Do you really forgive me? I nodded. Yes, the past is gone, Robin. What matters now is the love we still have and the family we still are. And then from the corner of the studio, Noah Johnson stepped forward. His eyes were wide. Dad? Robin looked at him, stunned, and then back at me. Noah? I smiled. Yes, Robin, he's here, and he's been helping me. The reunion was quiet, simple, but full of emotion. No dramatic words were necessary. Just 3 generations standing together in the studio, surrounded by the hum of machines, the smell of fabric, and the life I had rebuilt from heartbreak. We spent the afternoon talking, sharing memories, laughter, and tears. Robin apologized again, and this time I could see he truly understood the hurt he had caused. But more importantly, he saw the life I had built on my own, a life full of purpose, dignity, and joy. Noah watched us carefully, slowly realizing that his grandmother had been through so much, and yet had built something beautiful despite it all. By evening, we were sitting in the small studio kitchen, sipping tea and sharing stories. Noah laughed at the way I used to scold him as a boy. Robin smiled, and I felt whole. Finally whole. The next morning, we took a walk to the nearby park. Hand in hand, 3 generations together. Robin told me he wanted to help with the business, not because I needed it, but because he wanted to be part of this family again. I smiled, feeling a warmth that years of loneliness could not have prepared me for. Welcome, I said. From that day on, our lives intertwined in ways I had dreamed of but never imagined would come true. The studio became even busier, but this time, as a business, it was a home, a place where family, love, and community all lived under one roof. Noah continued as my apprentice, learning everything from stitching to managing the store. Robin came by regularly, helping with accounts, picking up orders, even learning to thread a needle without complaining too much. We laughed at his clumsiness, cheered each small victory, and celebrated life together. And me? I felt the kind of peace that only comes from forgiveness, resilience, and love returned. Sometimes, at night, I'd sit by the window of my small apartment above the studio, watching the city lights flicker, and whisper to myself, life may have left me behind once, but it also brought me back everything I lost. Strength, purpose, my family, my love, and hope. Because, child, that's what I've learned. Even when people let you down, even when life seems unfair, your heart can heal, your dreams can grow, and your love can be restored, stronger than before. I closed my eyes and smiled, listening to the soft hum of the sewing machines below, knowing that at last my family was together again, and my heart was finally at peace.